Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar by Phrase. Today's topic is an introduction to phrase strings. So if you are new to strings or if you're looking to start to use it, this is a session for you. Today's speaker is Randy. Randy is our solutions engineer at Phrase. He has kindly prepared a demo for us that we are going to watch, and afterwards we are going to be back live to address your questions.
Hello, and welcome to this webinar on phrase strings. Phrase strings is the product offered by Phrase to handle the localization of key value based file formats. That is to say, the formats that are normally used to develop websites, mobile apps, or video games, just to provide a few examples. In this webinar, we will focus on the point of view of linguists, so how linguists would work with the phrase strings platform. And we will also go over the specifics of phrase strings for the localization workflow management. If you are here, you might already know, but if you do not know, we will go over it in a few minutes, that the workflow to localize websites or mobile apps has some differences with respect to the workflow that you would usually follow to localize long-form contents, for example, legal documents or life science documents, and so on. So let's start by looking at the homepage of the Phrase platform. In this webinar, you will see me switching from one account to another because that way I can show you how the UI changes based on the rights assigned to the users. So in this case, I'm logged in with a linguist account that has access only to the projects and jobs assigned to him in this case. But let's start looking in general at the UI. So here on the right, we can access the profile settings, where you can set your name and email, your username, and also your password. On the right, you can also specify the language of the platform. The platform is localized in quite a few languages, as you can see. You can also specify your time zone, and it's actually highly recommended that you do so because it allows you to see meaningful due dates for the jobs that are assigned to you. And you can also choose a theme. You can go with the system theme, so inheriting the theme of your operating system and browser, or you can pick between the light mode and the dark mode. What we are seeing here is the dark mode, which I'm aware that is usually associated to nerd users such as myself. And then you have tabs related to the open authorization or two-factor authentication to log in with third-party apps, or to enable two-factor authentication for your login. So security measures for your login. You have the access tokens. So the token that you would need to authenticate for API calls. And then the notifications tab, where you can set your preferences in terms of notifications. So what notifications you want to receive, when you want to receive notifications via emails, and for which projects you want to receive notifications. Here, I only see the projects that I am assigned to, and I can decide to switch on or off notifications for each of them. You can also have access to some details of the organization you're part of. You also have the notifications button. If you click on this button, you can see any notification that you have received. And these are the same notifications that you would normally receive via email if you have decided to receive notifications via email in your profile. Now let's go back to the projects view. Just like in TMS, if you are already familiar with Phrase TMS, or if you attended the TMS webinar yesterday, you can see that on the left, you have a menu with a list of views you can have access to. There's the projects view and the jobs view. As you know, a project is where you add your content to be translated. and you attach to a project your translation memory, your term base, the users that are going to handle the translation, and so on and so forth. And then you can split a project into multiple jobs. We will see that the concept of jobs in strings is not the same as the concept of jobs in TMS, but we will get to that in a few minutes. If we switch to the jobs view, we can see that the user has access to one job only. If we look at the term bases view, we see a list of the term bases. Again, we only see the term bases that are assigned to the projects we are assigned to. And if I try and open one of them, I will see that there are some terms inside this term base, but I cannot edit anything because linguists do not have the rights to do so in phrase strings. Then we have the custom metadata view. Custom metadata are metadata that can be attached to the content in your projects, and we will see how they work in a few minutes. Phrase analytics is where you can get insights into the volumes that you've been handling as a linguist. So you have visualizations that show you how many projects you have handled, how many keys you've handled, and you can also filter them by date, by space, which is a concept that we will touch upon in a few seconds, and by project. And then there's a section about integrations. Here you can see a list of possible integrations that are available in the phrase strings platform. As a linguist, you do not have access to the integrations. You cannot configure new integrations. So this is just to show you what is available. Now let's go back to the projects view. I was telling you that we would have touched upon the concept of spaces, and here we are. So this is the list of spaces I have access to with this account. Spaces are essentially a convenient way to organize your projects in phrase strings. So the platform administrator or owner or the project manager can create new spaces in phrase strings. Inside a space, you can add specific users or a specific team of users. You can attach a term base, for example, and any project that is going to be created inside that space is going to inherit the same users or team of users and the same term base, for example, that is assigned to that space. So it's not just to visually organize the projects, it's also to make sure that a project can be accessed to specific people and has specific resources attached to it. Each space can have a variable number of projects. In this case, we have 3 projects inside that space. We can also see the list of users attached to this space. The UI in strings is highly customizable. You can pick the block view, or you can pick the list view and see your projects in a list. Now let's open a project and check out how it looks like in practice. So as soon as you open a project, you have an overview of the project. You see how many jobs you have inside it. You see what translations or verifications are required. And you have information about the tags that are attached to specific keys. Here you can see the uploads, so what files have been uploaded to this specific project. In the Languages tab, you see the list of languages attached to this project. In this case, we have 3. We have English, which is the default locale, and then German and Italian. The concept of default locale is similar to the concept of source language that you usually have in translation in general and that you would have in phrase TMS, with the difference that Again, strings is built for the localization of websites, mobile apps, video games. In this case, localization is usually a sort of continuous cycle where you would translate a source content, but then that content might be changed in the new release of your website or in the new release of your app. And so what you want to do is to go back to your original key value pair and update it and make sure that the translation is also updated. So the default locale is not the, let's say, immutable source of truth that usually is the source text in phrase TMS or in the translation world in general. English and German here are grayed out. This is because this user only has access to Italian as a language. Now let's see how translating in strings would look like. To do this, I want to go to the list of my jobs. As I was telling you at the beginning, a job in phrase strings is not the same as a job in TMS. A job in TMS is just a file uploaded to be translated in a specific target language. A job in strings is not necessarily a whole file. It can be a subset of the content of a file. Let me show what I mean here. So I'm going to open the language assigned to me. On the left, you see the list of keys. So what you see in bold is the key, and what you see just below the key is the value attached to the key. So the key is the identifier for a specific value. You can think of it as if you are browsing through a huge drawer with a huge amount of documents. Each document would have a label attached to it that tells you these are the legal documents from 2024. These are the legal documents for 2025. These are the medical documents for this year, and so on and so forth. So the key would be the label that immediately lets you understand what's the content of that folder. And the content of the folder would be the value. And inside the job, you can attach all the keys that you have in the project, or you can attach a subset of the keys that you have in the project. So this is the editor UI in phrase strings. Again, the editor UI is fully customizable, just like the UI that we were looking at, so the main dashboard of phrase strings. You can decide to show the key list on the left or to hide it. You can decide to activate or deactivate the source text preview in the key menu. You can show one or multiple keys in your editor UI. So here I have the single key view. You see here in the middle, I only see one key. This is with its English text and the Italian translation. If I deactivate it, I see just a list of keys with their locales, and I can scroll down through them. So you can decide to show or not show non-printable characters. You can decide to hide the QPS score, the quality performance score. This is a score that tells you how well this target text produced by machine translation translates the source text. It's a score that goes from 0 to 100. It's a score developed by phrase, and it usually helps linguists understand where to place their focus while translating. You can also decide to go for a vertical split of the card where you have your key. So you can have the source on the left and the translation on the right. And then here, this is the settings for the sidebar on the right that we are going to look at just now. So on the left, you have the keys. In the center, you have the values associated to each key in one or more target languages. On the right, you have the information on each key. So if you click on a key here, you see that, for example, we have a match from the term base here for renewable energy. We have a quality assurance section telling us that there's a missing term here. And this is why we are also seeing this red dot with an exclamation mark in the middle. It's telling us that there is a missing term. We can see the suggestions coming from machine translation in this case. Phrase Language AI is our suite of machine translation / AI tools. You also have a section for references. In this case, I have attached a screenshot. So this is the translation of a design, and having a screenshot is helpful because you can also zoom into the screenshot and it would let you understand exactly where this translation is ending up in the target design. It also highlights exactly where this value is appearing. And if we scroll down, we have the name of the job these keys belong to. We have the tags attached to the job. So tags are not the tags that you would have in the source text to specify, for example, the formatting of the text, but are metadata that you can attach to one or more keys in order to be able to identify a specific metadata. So for example, this tag here tells you that this key belongs to the job, and this is the D39B, and so on and so forth, is the identifier of the job. Some more metadata about the keys. So if it is translated or not, what's the ID of the key, what's the ID of the translation, when it was updated last, and so on and so forth. And then here you have the activities, the comments. I will show to you how they work in a few seconds. The changes, so what was changed in the key, by whom and when. And then the all languages preview is usually useful to show you what the translation is in the other languages attached to this project. You might want, for example, to look at the other languages to see how the translator for German handled the translation so that you can understand perhaps a little bit better the context, or just to make sure that your translation is consistent with the translation in other languages. And then we have linked keys. This is a concept that we'll touch on in a few minutes. Custom metadata, as I said, are metadata that you can attach to your keys. So they are more useful perhaps for developers than for linguists, but in some cases they might be useful. For example, in this case, this metadata is letting us know that after this translation, no release of this website page is going to be required. And then the comment section lets you leave comments to other users assigned to this job or this project or this space. You can also mention users, right? As soon as you use the mention symbol, you're going to see a list of users that are assigned to this space. And you can tag, for example, the owner and ask, can you provide more info about this key, for example, and the user is going to receive a notification about your comment. And now if we go back to the comments here, we will see that the comment is listed. So now let's pretend that I'm starting to translate keys for this job into Italian. I already know that here I have a source term that needs to be translated consistently with the term base, and the term is missing. So I can just change this here. And suppose that the rest is okay. So let me confirm this segment. Now, what I wanted to show you is that, as you can see, all these keys have this status, and the status is translated. I can also switch to a new one that I haven't touched yet, and the status is translated. So you might wonder, why are you assigning a job to a linguist if all the keys are already translated? As I was mentioning at the beginning of this webinar, the review workflow for the localization of key and values is slightly different. You might have two types of workflows in phrase strings, in your phrase strings jobs. The basic workflow and the advanced workflow. In this job, the basic workflow was chosen by the project manager. The basic workflow is a workflow where anything that gets pre-translated or translated for the first time is immediately marked as translated. In this case here, we have activated pre-translation using a mix of translation memories and machine translation. So all keys that have been pre-translated by machine translation or the translation memories are already marked as translated. So what the linguist can do is just go from one key to the other and just confirm the translation or change the translation if needed. There's also the possibility, suppose that as a linguist you want to change something and you want to let the project manager know that you have changed something in this segment, for example, because you don't like this segment, so you want to change it into this. What you can do is marking this as unverified. So this would let the project manager know that you have a key that needs verification, for example, because you've changed it and you want the project manager or the developer or the designer to look at this translation and decide whether this translation, for example, fits well inside your design. So this is the basic workflow. You can simply change the target text and confirm it, or confirm it without changes if it's good enough, or you can mark it as unverified, is this translation needs to be verified by another user after your pass on these keys. Okay, so now we don't have to look at all the keys, right? So let's pretend that we did look at all the keys, and now we want to mark this job as completed and send it back to the project manager. So all we have to do is to go back to our jobs, click on the job, and mark it as completed. Now, if I go back to my jobs view, I don't have any open jobs anymore. I can switch to the all section where I can see my design job still there, completed. If I switch to my project manager account, here is my project. I can refresh my page. And now I can see that the Italian job has been marked as completed because I can switch it back to uncompleted, for example. Of course, as a project manager, I can see that the Italian language has been marked as completed because as a project manager, I have the right to mark it as uncompleted, so to take it back one step, basically. And whereas for the German part, it's still in progress and I can mark it as completed if I want to. Now, as promised, I want to switch to a different account assigned to a different job. So here I'm accessing phrase strings with another account. I can open the jobs view. I have one job here. It says small job. Let's see, it only contains 4 keys. In this job, I have enabled, as a project manager, I have enabled the advanced review workflow. So if I open the job, I can see that all keys have this status, right? This status says ready for review. So the review is basically the job that I have to do as a linguist to enter each key, provide a translation, and confirm the translation. In the advanced workflow, I can insert the suggestion that comes from Phrase Language AI, and I can save my translation. So once the translation is saved, the status is still ready for review. So it means that this translation is ready to be passed on to the review step. So this is how it works with the advanced workflow. Everything that is translated is not marked as translated as it was in the other job that we were looking at, but it's marked as ready for review because we take for granted that after this step, we are going to go through a review step where someone else is going to verify the translation and to mark it as translated. In this case as well, I have the possibility to mark the translation as unverified. So in this context of the advanced workflow, marking something as unverified might be useful if the source text has changed in the meantime, for example. So suppose that the developer has decided that this key needed to be changed, for example, because it was not fitting well in the design of the website. So the source text has changed, and what we can do is to mark this as to be verified because we've changed the translation so that it matches the source text. So this is an example of how this procedure can still be relevant even in the advanced workflow where you have the review process anyways. Let us translate all the keys that we have here. I'm going to insert the translation provided by Phrase Language AI. And here you can see that in phrase strings, we also support plural forms. So plural forms are a convenient way to handle the translation of specific values where the translation of such values might change based on the number of items referred to in the value. So here, for example, we have the number of calories burned. In English, you only have two cases. You have like the singular one and the plural one, right? But in other languages, we know that the morphology of the sentence might change a lot based on the number of items referred to. If it's just one, if it's zero, if it's from, 0 to 20, if it's more than 20, and so on and so forth. So this is where handling plural forms becomes very useful. So in this case, we do not have a translation for 0. We do have a translation for 1 and a translation for other. And I'm just going to insert again the translation provided by machine translation. These ones here that you see highlighted in green are placeholders. Placeholders are a syntax used to act as well as a placeholder for content that is going to be inserted in this context. So for example, here, %D stands for a number, a digit, right? So let me save this translation and then switch to the translation for other. And again, here I'm just going to insert the translation. Well, I've just noticed here that I've always used the plural form, but anyways, this is just to show you how it works. Maybe something else that I can show you is that if I go back to my sentence and remove the placeholders, and I try to save it again, I get a warning here telling me that there's a missing placeholder, right? So I need to change it back. So placeholders are fully supported, not just visually in the UI, not just showing you that you have a placeholder in the source, but also checking that this placeholder is present in the target, just like in the source. Something that is also useful to know about phrase strings is that you have probably noticed that we have this key here at the very top that is untranslated. It's grayed out. I cannot edit it. And it says, it has this symbol, right? Saying that this key is synced with something else. Let's just look at what it is. And it talks about a parent key, right? And the saying goes, if we scroll down to the list of linked keys, we have just looked at them with the previous job that we were looking at. Using parent and children keys helps you keeping your translations organized so that anytime you have a key that is supposed to hold the same value, you can link these keys to each other. You can have a parent key and you can have children keys. This is a way to make sure that whenever you have a parent key and then you upload keys that are children keys for that parent key, so all these keys are linked to each other, any children key is going to inherit the same translation as the parent key. So you make sure that the translation for this set of keys linked to each other is always consistent. You can also see that in this project, I have added, as a project manager, I have added some more metadata. So here in this case, I'm saying that the release is required. The version number for the release is going to be 1. And I have provided also a very meaningful long text attached to this key. So now again, what we want to do is to mark this job as completed so that this job can go to the next step being the review. So I'm just going to the German one, mark it as completed. And now if I log in with another profile, again, the profile of the reviewer, I can see a few more things. So the first thing is that, as you can see, this user has more rights. So this user can access any project available in this phrase instance, but only the projects the user is assigned to can be edited. All the other ones, as you see, are grayed out and can be accessed as guest, meaning that you can look at the translations, but you cannot perform any edit. So this is just to show you how different users can have different rights impacting the way in which they see their the UI. Let's go to our jobs, and here we have this job, and German is actually ready for review because it has been marked as completed in the translation progress, in the translation step, sorry. So let me open the German one and let us start with the review. So when you look at this from the perspective of a reviewer, again, you see that this has the status ready for review. What you can do is simply mark this as saved and reviewed. And now the symbol, the status has changed to reviewed. And I can do this for any segment here. Let me confirm all of them so that we complete the job. It's a small job and it takes a very short time. Maybe something that I haven't mentioned before. You are seeing me doing all of this, all this review manually by clicking with my mouse on different buttons. I do not want to scare you. I'm just doing this manually right now because it's just a few keys. There is the possibility to use keyboard shortcuts, and there's also this convenient button here called keyboard shortcut, where you can see the list of keyboard shortcuts that you can use to perform all the operations. Something else that I haven't mentioned before, but can be quite useful for you is, let me activate the key list on the left again. You can filter keys based on a set of parameters. So for example, here I have filtered them based on a tag. The tag contains the job identifier. You can also filter based on the status, if they are untranslated, ready for review, reviewed, unverified. So if you have, of course, in this case, we only have a very small job, right? So it's not like filtering is going to do is going to be of great help. But if you have a job with lots of keys, you might want to be able to immediately identify which ones have to be verified, for example. You can also filter keys based on their exclusion or inclusion. We haven't touched on that before. Basically, you can decide to exclude or include keys from a project or from a job. When the keys are excluded, it means that you cannot edit them, you cannot work on them, and those keys are not going to be exported when the project is completed. So this can be useful if you have a key, for example, that is not ready yet to be exported with the rest of the translated keys. And then, of course, including the keys would mean that you are including it back in the set of keys that can be edited, translated, and exported. You can also identify the keys that contain pluralized forms. We have just looked at the support for plural forms, and you can also filter the keys based on their pre-translation status if they are pre-translated or not. There are also some advanced filtering options here if you want to filter based on the content, so words contained in the content or look exactly for a specific content. The same goes for the key name, or you can search using tags. Okay, so now we can go again back to the project. Let's pretend that the review is over. So I can just enter the job again. I did the review in German. I can mark it as completed. And now if I switch to my project manager account, I can switch to my list of jobs. And the German one is now completed. All right, so this is about working in the UI, performing the translation, performing the review, and so on. We haven't touched on all the tabs that you can have inside a project. Let me go back to a linguist profile to show this to you in a real-world scenario. So let us look at the remaining tabs here in this profile. I've switched to a different project just to show you that in the quality assurance tab, this is where you would see the list of all the quality assurance issues that you have on your project. So from here, you can open the key directly and see what's the issue. In this case, there's a missing term, right? So you can simply enforce the translation as in the term base, save it, and then if we go back to our project here, the quality assurance now lists only one item. The access to the settings tab, of course, is denied because as a linguist, you cannot change the QA settings. So this is only for project managers. And then you have the activity tab. This is useful if you want to check everything that has been changed in your in this specific project. So you can see what other users have done as well. You can also filter activities based on the date or based on the user to see what has done what. And you can also look for specific events or specific languages. In the more section, you can see, for example, you can have access to the files that were uploaded to the project, the screenshots that were uploaded to the project. You can see the list of keys or all the tags that are attached to one or more keys in the project. And now to conclude this tour, let me also show you the help and resources section here, where you can get access to useful contents like tutorials or webinars and information about the latest launches. You can access the legal documents about the platform. You can also get help from our tech support team via chat or getting in touch directly with somebody at Phrase. You can also visit our help center where you can find easy to read articles about our features, how they work, how to set them up. And you can also, for example, see the latest news about our products. So this concludes our tour of phrase strings. I hope this was useful and clear enough. Please do not hesitate to ask questions during the QA session.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Randy, for the demo. You mentioned questions, so I'm just going to quickly paste the link to Slido again to the Zoom chat for anyone who hasn't logged into that yet. Feel free to still submit questions. Just before we go there, I would like to mention some additional resources that you can look into if you would like to explore more functionalities of phrase strings. If you go onto our website to phrase.com/academy, you will find our courses that we currently have that you can take and even gain a certification about your proficiency in phrase strings. You can see in particular that we have different courses for phrase strings translator certification and then for phrase strings developer certification. So you might want to pick one depending on what types of actions you are expected to do within strings. Maybe you are doing both, so you might want to take both. But yeah, it's a great resource for you if you want to get even more proficient. Today it was just a preview or an overview of the basic functionalities, but you can see that there are multiple, several hours of content ready for you in these courses. So definitely something to check out. Okay, now I think we can slowly navigate into the Q&A. So I'm going to just share them on the screen here. So we have one question, but it is composed out of 3 different ones. So maybe let's take it one by one. Do the translation services in Phrase always rely on external engines like Google Translate, DeepL, etc.? Randy.
Here is how it works. We do support the most popular machine translation engines, like the one that that Eric is mentioning here, the Google Translate, DeepL. We support more than 20 machine translation engines. Some of them are third-party engines, like Google or DeepL. Some others are proprietary engines developed by Phrase, for example, Phrase Next MT or Phrase Next Gen MT. Both are developed and maintained by Phrase. Phrase also offers Phrase Custom AI, which is a functionality to train your own machine translation engines. Of course, this is available for companies, so it would be available for your customers, your language service providers, for example, or the company you're translating for. So these are the different options. So it doesn't have to be an external engine. It can be a third-party provider. It can be an off-the-shelf solution offered by Phrase, such as Phrase Next MT or Phrase Next Gen MT, or it can be an in-house model created with Phrase.
Okay.
And actually, we also have, if you work with LSPs might also bring in their own machine translation systems. So these are all the cases that we support.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Second part of the question, given the recent withdrawal of AI actions, what has changed with the translation services?
Yeah, good point. So AI actions are not available in the Strings UI anymore because of their low scalability mainly. but nothing else has changed with the translation services. So all the other functionalities are exactly the same as before. If you have used phrase strings over the past few months, you have probably also noticed that we have just added Phrase Language AI, our suite of machine translation tools, to phrase strings. So that was a huge step forward for the usage of AI and machine translation in strings. AI actions were removed, but all the rest has stayed exactly the same, and it has improved with the addition of Phrase Language AI.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Thank you for mentioning Phrase Language AI. This is something that we are probably going to cover in one of our next webinars in more detail. So if you're interested in that, or maybe you haven't used Phrase Language AI in the TMS before, so it's completely new to you in phrase strings. So stay tuned, and we will bring a dedicated webinar on that to you later. Third part of the question, where can we see the webinar for TMS? So maybe I can take that one. We did just yesterday a webinar dedicated to the functionalities useful for linguists, translators, post editors, whoever works directly in the web editor within TMS. I am currently working on uploading it to our website, so you will be able to find the recording there on phrase.com/resources, and in the webinar section you will find the recording there. We also have other types of sessions on TMS focused on project management or better subscription management specifically for TMS. So have a look through, scroll through the webinars that are available on demand. There are a lot, and they are all free and available for you to watch in your own time. So hopefully that will have some answers that you're looking for. Okay, it looks like there are no other questions from anyone. Randy, maybe do you have anything else to add, or can we wrap it up? I think it was pretty clear. There are no other questions.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so thank you so much, Randy, for the demo and for addressing the questions. Thank you everyone who joined us, and yeah, see you at some other webinar next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thanks, Clara.